All right, and I just want to say this real quick. Please be sure before you do any demolition work that the work that you're planning to do will not negatively affect the structure of your building. So I know that I have a beam running across here. It's right about that 2x4, that top plate there. I know that with or without this wall in here, that my structure is going to be fine. The floor above it is going to be totally supported by that beam running across. But please be sure when you're doing your own work, if you don't know, please seek help from a professional. Please get a professional's opinion on the work that you're about to do before you start ripping out any walls. All right, now that I got that portion of the wall ripped out, I'm gonna go back and frame this in. And eventually there's gonna be some banister sticking up there, and then the handrail is gonna continue down. Right now this is a little bit rough, and I'm gonna come back and cut the gyp flush with the top of this board that runs down the side of the stairs. So let's get to it. To start, I'm just gonna use a razor blade. I've got a fresh blade in there, and I'm just gonna score along this edge. Same thing on the bottom here. For right now, I'm just gonna trim it flush. All right, so along this edge is fine. Now I gotta trim up by the top 2x4. All right, and since that was such a thin piece to cut off, I guess it was just a little bit easier to cut it from the finished side and just do your best to follow the 2x4. All right, so now we're in this top corner, and the first thing we got to do is get this angle right. So I've got a combination square right here. I'm just gonna take that top piece off. All right, so I'm just gonna take this here, and I know that this angle is 45 degrees on the tool. And I don't know how well you can see that, but it doesn't look like it's quite 45 degrees. Looks a little bit steeper, so I'm gonna try maybe 46, 47 degree angle on my miter saw and see where that gets me. There's another tool that you can pick up. I just don't happen to have one. I think it's called an angle gauge. I'll put an image on the screen right here, but that will allow you to dial in this exact angle and then mark that and cut it on the saw. I'm just kind of using the tools I have right now. All right, so after a little bit of trial and error, I realized I was going the wrong way. Actually, this turned out to be about a 41 degree angle. So if I line it up there, this is pretty much flush right there, and then it's flush along the top of the stairs right here. All right, so I like to let this bottom plate run about 2 to 3 inches past the sides of the stair. And then also, then I didn't have to deal with trying to remove all these nails. So I just cut it back a little bit, and then I can start laying out my first stud right here. All right, so first thing to do is put an angle on the end of a 2x4. And remember, we're coming out past here, so I'm gonna measure probably to right about there, just to be on the safe side. So from that corner down to there, I'm gonna call this 62 inches. And we'll be trimming this back later. So 62 inches, roughly. Turn this all back to 90. All right, and just so I can line it up a little bit more accurately every time, I'm just gonna take my scrap. You could take this one if you want to, but just take your scrap, it's the same angle, and line it up so it's flush right there with that stair board, and then just strike a line across the top. This will help you just line it up at the same spot every single time. I also find that if you're working by yourself, just get a little clamp, and once you get this angle in place, once you get this this piece in place, just put a clamp right there, and then when you're working on the opposite end, you can just set it on top of the clamp. It should line up right there, and it's an extra hand for you. All right, now we're gonna line this plate up to be flush with the stair right here. So we'll go off our mark right up top that we just made, and then just kind of feel, you can look at it too, look at it from the side, make sure that it's flush to the top. It also helps, obviously, if this top plate is as straight as it can be. So once you get that in place, again, unless you get a helper to hold it in place for you, I like to take a few clamps and clamp that in place. There. All right, and then you can kind of double check it. Make sure that it's flush. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, so now we're down here at the bottom again. I'm just using that scrap from before and placing it right on the end of this bottom plate. And once I get that in place, you can double check that it's square, that it's nice and plumb. Let's take either the speed square, whatever square you got, and make sure it's nice and plumb right there. That looks good. And I'm just gonna make a mark along this back side at the angle of this top plate. All right, so right there. So again, just that's right in place here. It's nice and plumb, and then just trace along the bottom here, that angle. That's gonna be that 41-degree angle right there, but that's gonna give you the exact dimension that you need to cut it at. So let's go cut it. All right, so we got that cut to size, and fits in here nice and snug, like that. All right, so that's perfect. All right, so now we got that bottom block in place just temporarily right now, and so we can take a straight edge and right along that edge of it, nice and straight, and just draw a line. And now that's where we got to cut that same angle on this top plate. So let's do that. All right, and if it all goes to plan, this should line up perfectly. Look at that, right there. And I just like to pre-drill and screw this block into place along with this part right here. I'm going to drive a couple screws down there just because this block is so small and it has a tendency to crack, especially when you're right near the end of it. All right, so now we got this top plate in place, and we can begin laying out our studs that we need. All right, so my studs are actually laid out already from before when I had studs going all the way up to the ceiling. But if yours aren't, just hook on to a stud back and then mark out your 16s. So right here, I got a 16. Keep it hooked on there. I got 32 right there. And then 48 is actually past the end of it. So I've got two studs, one right here, and I will put the X on the left side because that's the way that I was pulling the tape out. And also I hooked on this side, on the right side of this previous stud. So if my 16's here, then that's on the right side of this stud, and my stud's gonna sit on the left side of my 16 marks. Hope that makes sense. So we got our 16s marked out on the bottom. Now we gotta transfer that up to the top. So what I like to do is take a square and bring your marks out to the edge. Okay, and then you can do it along the face here as well. Same thing for this one. Right about there. Now, I have a 4-foot level, but take whatever size level you need and put it right on that mark that you just transferred over there, and then find level on your level. All right, so that's level right there. I'm gonna make another mark right here. Okay, now I can do that on this side as well. Put the level on your mark, find level, just right there, and draw another line on your top plate. And we know that on the bottom plate, the stud sits on the left side of that mark, so we'll mark an X right there on that side. Same thing for the other one. All right, now to get the length of that stud, we'll measure from the top of this plate to the bottom of right there on that mark, and that's gonna be our long edge of the stud. So it looks like 14 3/4. I'll measure this one too. So 14 3/4 was the other one. This one is 27 3/4. Just put them in place, make sure they line up right on our marks. All right, that one seems pretty good. That one too. All right, now we can just toenail them in on the bottom and then screw them in on the top. All right, and this last one's a little bit unnecessary probably, but just to give a little bit of support under this top part of that top plate, I just cut one of these to size, like that. Like I said, it's probably unnecessary, but now this is resting on something instead of just being pinned in from the side. So just drive that guy home. All right, and that's really all there is to framing an opening on a stair like this. So next, what's gonna happen is the drywaller is gonna come in, pretend this is drywall, and just install drywall right here along this face, and then he's gonna cut it off flush with the top of this top plate. And so once the drywall is done, then I can come back with a piece of 1x material and just put it across this top like this, and that's gonna act like a cap right there, and it's gonna be a finished piece of material, probably something to match the sides of the stairs right there. And once I have this capped off, then I can run my banisters and my railing all the way down to the end here. All right, so if you guys enjoyed this video and you feel like you learned something and you feel that I've earned it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, go ahead and hit that like button as well. That just lets me know that this was a decent video and maybe I should make some more videos just like this. But until next time, thanks for watching.